Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again. Believe in a power greater than what you are going through. When you don't know what to do, keep breathing.
That's right. When you don't know what to do, just keep on breathing. From the City of Angels here in Los Angeles, welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Land. I'm Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver at caregiverdave.com, along with my lovely co-host, best-selling author and former mayor of Grover Beach in Central California, Debbie Peterson. And we're also coming to you live and on demand 24/7 on numerous syndicated radio and podcast networks on 30 audio and video platforms, including iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Vimeo, Spotify, and we're just going to say a lot more. In fact, we're proud to be voted number one caregiver podcast on Feet out of Thousands, number one on Player FM. And we do have an especially exciting show planned for you today. The Power of Connection, Dianne Olvera. Imagine a profound impact you can have when every interaction leaves others feeling respected, confident, and valued in their ability. For Dr. Dianne Olvera, author of The Power of Connection, Understanding Individual Differences to Uplift and Empower, has over 4 decades experience as a university professor, researcher, diplomat, and educational therapist. But before we get started, I want to take this moment to thank my last week's guest, Steve Melman, receiver of a master's degree in clinical psychology and a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist. And just a reminder, you can watch or listen to that interview and all our interviews on our membership website, caregiverdave.com, including this one today, or on any of our 30 audio and video networks that I mentioned earlier. All right, enough of that. Dianne, so great to have you on the Caregiver Dave Show.
Well, nice to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Our pleasure. And I do like to always ask my guests just who is Dianne Olvera and why was she placed on this earth?
Well, I started out on this earth in a pretty difficult fashion. My mother didn't really want me, and so whenever I would ask a question, she would take a freshly soaked bar of soap and scrape it behind my front teeth.
Nice. No matter what you said?
I wasn't allowed to ask questions. We weren't allowed to talk back. We weren't allowed to define self. It was,
Poor thing. How did you ever get over all of that?
Well, after I left home, I became a stewardess.
At the age of?
I was probably 20, 19, 20. I went to college for a little while, and then I went off to the airlines. But I didn't have any strategies for working with people. I didn't know how to interact verbally. So one day on a flight from New York to the Indianapolis 500, I was quite new at the time. I knocked a man's tooth out with my hip. And I didn't know what to do. So I asked my flying partner, and she said, I don't know. So this is when we still were able to open up the cockpit door. I ran up to the cockpit. We were on our descent, and I said, Captain, you can't land the plane right now. I just knocked a man's tooth out with my hip. And he said, honey, just go back, collect the trays. We'll talk about this later. And that's impulsive speech. Anyway, long story short, he thought it was so funny. He radioed down and said he had the only stewardess in the world that can knock men's teeth out. So we actually got, he after everybody got off, he told me to get into an ambulance, which I thought, oh boy, I'm really doomed. But no, he got a ride in the Goodyear blimp while everybody was at the Indianapolis 500.
Wow.
So when I got back on the airplane to go back to New York with him and all the passengers, right in the middle of the aisle, what did he do? He said, ladies and gentlemen, please be very careful with this young lady. She can take your teeth out. And I stayed in the galley for the rest of the trip. That was my introduction to learning how to interact with people. And I realized I had a long way to go. So after 5 years of working as a stewardess, I met my Argentine husband and moved to Argentina. And I learned very differently. I mean, they hugged me, they talked, they were very open in their conversations. Have you ever actually listened to Netflix and like a movie or a series on Netflix? You will see that there's a great difference in how open they are. At first, I was put off. I felt very embarrassed that they would tell me things about acting American or dressing like American. But then I realized they cared, and that opened up a whole new door. That marriage didn't work out, but I met my American husband at the American Embassy while I was teaching at an American school in Argentina, and I became a diplomat. And what a different relationship. I mean, we spent morning till night attending to diplomats from all over the world and gathering information for the United States. And I don't know if you ever saw White Collar or any diplomatic Netflix, but or The Diplomat, that's a new one that was out. Well, that was our lifestyle. We would attend to people. We would talk to people that were covert, and I had to learn how to mind my words to interact in a way that would not get me in jeopardy or cause my husband to have some issues.
Wow.
So, and then we got to meet, very high-powered people. And I was so intrigued with that when I got back to the States, I wanted to know the language of power. How do people think? So I got my first doctorate in bilingual special education. I wanted to learn how the brain works and why do people say the things they do. And that wasn't enough. So I got a second doctorate in cultural differences. And I know I'm crazy, but it really helped. It helped me understand that the words we use are the words that can enhance our interactions or deplete a relationship. Even after, like, there are some people that would come to my office after 20, 30 years of marriage, ready for a divorce. And I would look at them and they weren't looking at each other. They weren't, they were, the words that they were using, the prosody was aggressive. And so I would make these comments and tell them, this is what I'm seeing. Could you please go home and try just looking at each other? Look at the words that you're using. Sometimes they start out in jest. Oh, honey, you're so stupid. Oh, that was dumb. And before you know it, what are we doing? We're demeaning each other. And the rest of our 20, 30 years that we're together, we're demeaning each other.
Well, this really hits home. I'm a guy who has a sense of humor. Some say it's dry humor, but I used to have a gas station, been retired a year now, and it was a coffee shop too. And so we had a drive-through. And one day, I always like to let people, laugh or whatever. And then this lady pulls in, and her car is just jam-packed, everything. And so I just was going to be funny. I said, "Oh my gosh, are you running away from home?" And I thought that was a funny thing to say, but she started coming after me verbally, saying, "How dare you?" I said, "My husband just kicked me out of the house, and I have nowhere to go." And she was ranting for like 5 minutes, and so I hurried up and got her a drink, and she left. And 10 minutes later, the phone rang. I picked it up, and it was her. And another thing,
Oh, poor you.
stop. I didn't mean anything by that. I just, if he kicked you out, thank God that you discovered that now and not 20 years from now. I says, you're free, and I just tried to turn around, but she just wouldn't receive it. So I just hung up. Apparently my phone number was on the receipt. So yeah, you never know how fragile or where people's heads are at. And especially a guy like me who sometimes is unfiltered and I like to people nice, but I'm afraid. I was the guy who used to go up to a woman and say, "Oh, how many months are you pregnant?" And of course she'd say, "I'm not pregnant." I've learned a lot since my younger days.
That's funny. That's true.
So we have a question here. How did you integrate understanding individual differences into how you worked with your husband's caregivers and doctors? Because this happens to caregivers all the time. Uh, they didn't sign up for this. They were drafted into the caregiving world, and they're not very good at it. And add a doctor, add nurses, add pharmacists and stuff, and they can really get into a lot of trouble, can't they?
Yeah. Well, I actually treated them like I would treat a client that would come into my office for any type of therapy. But I would look at how did they use their words. Were their words aggressive? Hey, sit down, sit over here, move over here. Were they pulling body parts aggressively?
Mhm.
And I would use my eyes a lot, and I'd use questions. So I often would keep my eyes down when there were uncomfortable things happening, and then I would slowly raise them, and I would start my question with, if you were the receiver of having your body parts pulled around the room, how comfortable would you feel? And I look them right in the eye. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm sure you are. But let's keep that in mind because we all have bodies and we all are sensitive. And someone who's been in bed for a long time really needs a little more patience and comfort.
Yeah.
You are right. That's true. And I said, thank you so much for understanding. But then this is where self-awareness comes in. Self-awareness is the basis for all interactions. They are not aware that they're doing it. So whenever they would do something that was wonderful, thank you for your patience today. Oh my goodness. He is so much happier. He's so relaxed. You have really calmed him down. Notice I'm making eye contact. You're wonderful. I really appreciate it. And then I tell her what I appreciate. I appreciate you touching him with kindness, looking at him when you talk, and providing comfort when he asks for it. I really, really enjoy that. I hope you come back again next week.
Wow, you're so calming. I'm feeling like relaxed. Do you have any questions for? I have a doctor here.
Well, I probably have 100 questions, and I have to do a full disclosure here. I know Dianne very well because she was an educational therapist, and my son had 4 out of the 8 traits for Asperger's. Very few people understood what he needed, including his mother. And Dianne worked with us for many years, even to the point of, I believe we actually came to you and said, well, what do we do about college now? We're all conflicted here, and helped us work through that. And so I guess my question would be, so you were a diplomat, you lived in Argentina, had a wonderful second marriage, and how did you then come to do educational therapy?
Well, after Argentina, we went to Mexico and we were working as diplomats there. And both countries at the time that we were in them were having great conflicts. And so we were able to experience the strength and the weaknesses of people. But I really didn't understand the brain. Why do some people have hardships and still get through it, where other people have hardships and they become aggressive and mean and so powerful that all they want to do is hurt everyone? So I had to start all the way back from the developing brain. And that's why I started working with children and adults and anyone that had Asperger's learning problems. And what's interesting is over the actually 40 years that I had been doing this, the majority of my Asperger, autistic, and very difficult patients have actually become like your son, very prosperous.
And very successful.
Very, yes,
I
absolutely.
think Elon Musk is one of those as well.
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
one of my grandchildren was diagnosed Asperger's at an early age,
Mm,
maybe 3 years old, because he had these spores on his head, and I don't know how that relates to anything. But he started. His parents then had two little girls, and so they were doted on. Is that the right word? And he was kind of neglected, and he
mm,
would be getting the brunt of discipline, and yelled at, and wasn't getting the love he deserved. And he started hanging out with the wrong people, smoking pot, go joyriding, and this and that. And they got into an accident, and a young boy was killed as a result. He's in prison now, and he was about to go into the army because he needs that structured. But he calls me 2, 3 times a week, and he sounds so nice, and he doesn't even seem like he has Asperger's anymore. He's controlled his temper and his anger, and he got his GED in there, and he's just excited. He's getting let out for good behavior and all of that. So I never thought that anyone who had Asperger's can ever be quote unquote healed of it, but he sure doesn't act like someone with Asperger's anymore. But I haven't seen him in person, but he's very calm now. And what do you think about that?
You really touched on something that's so seminal to all this. When you start to learn who you are, self-awareness, self-awareness builds self-reliance. Self-reliance builds self-confidence. When you are self-confident and you know that you have abilities, then I can talk with you in open conversations. I could say, Dave, you are wonderful at this. I really like the way that you make me laugh. I like the way that you engage with people. And then let's say the situation you had with a woman that you thought was pregnant. But I'm wondering if you're making some women uncomfortable. But see, that would be opening up a door for an open conversation on something that might not be very comfortable originally for you. But
Mhm.
since you know yourself and you know your assets, you are now permitting me and both of us to have open conversations
Mhm.
because you have your power. When people were doing like they were doing with your grandson, telling him what to do, telling him what he cannot do. Anyone that you keep telling them what to do, guess what you're doing? You're taking away their power. And
Mhm.
when you take away their power, you take away their self-confidence, self-esteem, and self-awareness.
Mhm.
Actually, in doing these podcasts, I am learning so much. The business world are having trouble hiring people, especially people that are coming out of high school and college, because they don't have self-awareness.
Hmm.
So I did it. I actually tried something in my law class and I was teaching graduate school. I've been teaching at the university for a while. And I said, okay, I don't want to know your name. I don't know where you're from. I don't care. Tell me who you are. Not one person could raise their hand and tell me who they were. They had no self-awareness. So for the rest of the class, I defined what they were. I love the way that you project anger at this particular topic. Tell me more.
Mhm.
When I said that to the first person, tell me more, he stood up and he apologized profusely for the next 5 minutes. So I asked all the kids in the class, I said, look, you're all graduate students. Why are you upset when I ask you to tell me more? They couldn't answer. So it really opened my eyes to the fact that if we don't have self-awareness, what type of a group of people are we raising for our future?
Now, your husband had dementia, and you were his caregiver.
Yes. My husband's, we were married for 40 years.
Um,
And for 20 of those 40 years, he started going downhill. He
uh,
was
so sad.
exposed to Agent Orange when he was in Vietnam, and he had um, some health issues, and he had cancer. And so I became like a health nut, especially living in California. I would go down to the fields and I would buy the best fruit and vegetables, and I'd try to get him to exercise. And um, when he really felt very ill, I was angry. I was angry because I said, if only you had walked more. If only you stopped eating French fries.
Mhm.
And, I felt devastated that had he, had he protected himself or helped himself a little bit more, he would have been alive.
And we all have free wills, and you were getting angry, probably, no doubt,
Yeah.
because you couldn't change it.
Right, right. But then I started turning it around. I started using all the strategies I use with my clients, with him and with my son. My son was about 12 years old when we started using what we call interactive speech. And my son started to learn what self-awareness was. And he would use open speech with me. Mom, you just got back from the university and you're in a really bad mood. Why
Mm.
don't you wait before you talk to us because you're not in the mood to talk to us? And at first I didn't like that, but then I started to realize that it was okay. So since we started interactive speech with my husband at that early age, I was able to use the power of his self-awareness to give him back his power in illness. So when he got really, really bad, and I had to move him from California to Colorado, where our son lives, I would take him swimming all the way up to almost the end. And the nurses would tell me, there's no way you are going to get this 200-pound man into a car by yourself and into a bathing suit by yourself. But I did. And then I would roll him in his wheelchair over to the steps that would go down into the swimming pool. I put a hand on each arm to walk down the stairs. And then I would say a mantra. You are strong, you are healthy, and you can do this. And people would look at me like, this man's falling into the water. He's going to
Yeah.
die. And then all of a sudden, our words become us.
Hmm.
He got strong, he got healthy, and he became a strong man in that swimming pool. He would smile. He couldn't always talk, but he would smile. He would hug. And when he would do something that made him strong, I'd say, no, there you go. You're strong. So now let go of my hand and let's see what you can do. Show me. And he would.
Time is really flying here. We're almost out of time. What advice would you give to those experiencing depression? There's a lot of caregivers are depressed. Then we'll talk briefly about your book and what you hope to go on with that, and then we'll have to wrap it up.
Who are you? I always say to my caregivers, and I would say to myself, who are you, Dianne? What are you doing? What are you doing for him? But what are you doing for yourself? And there are times that I literally would say to the caregiver, can't do it today. I need you for 2 more hours. My body needs help.
Mhm.
And then I'd go get a massage or take a walk on the beach.
Yeah.
You have to. If you don't take care of yourself, as a matter of fact, we ended up in Colorado because the doctor said, if you don't take care of yourself, we're going to be taking care of you more than him.
Why is Colorado better than California for you?
It was a better nursing home for him. Every nursing home that I would go to review for him in California, honestly, it just was below par. But he needed to be respected. I really believe everyone needs respect. And I found and believe it or not, a VA nursing home that was very respectful and very kind.
It
Yeah.
said you had to go to Colorado to find one.
Yeah, I know. And I was telling Debbie, the power of love, because I had a beautiful house on a bluff that overlooked the ocean and the growing fields. And what do? You give all of that up for the person you love so that he could die in peace. And how did he die? We brought him home, and I spent the last 2 weeks with him. And every day I would lay in bed and I would tell him all the wonderful things that he did in his life and how happy he made everybody.
How did he respond to that?
He just would look at me because he couldn't speak anymore. He would look at me, and in his final moments, he was afraid to die.
Mhm.
And so I would tell him, guess what you've done? We've had the priest come and give you the last rites. You have made peace with all of your family, and there's a light. Have you seen that light? Can you move toward it? And he would hold my hand. I said, no, I can give you up because I know you'll be with me. And he left, he passed. And guess what? Like about a week later, he was a full colonel. So the kids called him the Bird. That was his like code name. A big hawk came and sat on my balcony and looked right at me. About a week after that, I was sitting at my computer and there's a tree in front of my computer. Two little birds. It was like dark and it was about almost time for the sun to go down, but the clouds were coming in and two little birds flew out from the tree and they flew really quickly. And there was the sun going down in the midst of a cloud and they flew off. And then one of the birds flew off into the bright sunshine of that cloud. And the cloud passed away and it went down. And I said, thank
The
you.
way to go.
Thank you. And so that gave me comfort to know that all of our efforts of caregiving and time to tell him how wonderful he is and was, he came back and repaid me.
You've got 60 seconds. Tell me your book, why you wrote it, what you hope people to get out of it, and so on.
Oh boy. Okay, the power of connection. I wanted people to understand that we're not all the same. And so I looked at individual differences and I gave just a brief indication of what differences we have. You might be a specialist. You like details. Someone else might be a generalist and they like the bottom line. So if I understand that, I'll be able to use those differences to know that he's getting on my nerve because he talks too much, but he needs to do that. So the first part of the book is talking about our differences, and it gives you little stories about each person. And then the second part is how to use those strategies. And you could use them successfully with anyone from a baby, 2 years old, all the way up to our age or more.
Where can we find your book and how can people reach you?
It's on Amazon now. And so you can find it on Amazon. And you can reach me at Dr. Dianne. It's www.drdianneolvera.com. And that's my
That's
website.
Dianne with two N's in Dianne.
Yes. I'm unique. Yes, that's right. Yes, and yeah, if you read the book and you have any questions, please get in touch with me, and you can get an ebook, and then read it quickly that way. So, yeah, any questions you have, I'd love to answer them. It's hard at the beginning because we forget to be quiet and listen to people. And that's the hardest part of probably the whole book. Keep just letting people talk and then defining what they are and helping them find their real self. Who are they? What are your powers? And when they find their powers, then relationships turn around, even with someone who's very ill.
Debbie, how can people learn more about what you do?
MayorDebbie.com would be the easiest way. And you can go to Amazon and look for Integrity 101 by Debbie Peterson. I have a series on how to communicate with local government.
And actually, you'll receive a free download book when you visit Dr. Olvera's website, which is drdianneolvera.com, right?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
it's a free overview. Yes.
And I'm at caregiverdave.com, and you'll get an initial free coaching call if you go on that. Look for the link. And you can also join my community of 34,000 caregivers on Facebook. And if you click the like or follow button on whatever platform you're on right now, it helps us Google even reach more caregivers. So again, a big thank you to all my listeners out there all over the world for tuning in every Wednesday. My co-hosts and my guests, thank you so much for coming on. And until next week, same time, same channel. May God richly bless you all. Bye-bye.
Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing.